In 1965, archaeologists working in the Hubei province of China opened an underground tomb that had been sealed for 25 centuries. Inside, sitting in the damp air, they found a wooden scabbard holding a nearly airtight seal. When the weapon was finally drawn from that scabbard, it defied all archaeological expectations. The blade didn't have a single speck of rust. In fact, it was still sharp enough to easily slice through a stout of paper. The blade features a distinct, repeating diamond pattern, and running down its surface is an ancient bird and worm script. That script translates directly, confirming the weapon belonged to King Goujian of Yue, custom-made for his personal use. Artifacts do not survive in this condition by accident. The sword of Goujian represents a high point in a specific regional tradition of bronze making, a metallurgical standard that turned a tool of war into a permanent record of authority. Explaining, weaponsmiths in antiquity faced a strict mechanical trade-off. Make a blade entirely out of hard metal and it holds a sharp edge, but shatters like glass on impact. Make it tough and flexible, and it absorbs the shock of combat, but quickly dulls into a useless club. Yue craftsmen solved this with chemistry. They forged a flexible core of 81.5% copper and 18.5% tin. Then they wrapped that core in an outer shell of 38.5% tin. This rigid edge locked onto the spine, slicing cleanly through bone. This dual alloy construction standardized a level of chemical engineering that wouldn't be documented with this precision for centuries. It explains why a single blade could be valued as highly as a fortified city. Fast forward a millennia and a half, and the sword reaches a zenith of global influence on the battlefields of medieval Europe. If you grew up watching modern fantasy movies, you probably picture the knights of this era heaving massive, clunky bars of iron, relying on raw brute strength to swing them around. The historical reality is entirely different. A standard 13th century arming sword weighed less than 2 pounds. It was a fast, perfectly balanced tool built for rapid, agile strikes. But defensive technology eventually caught up. As soldiers began draping themselves from head to toe in interlocking rings of iron chainmail, those rapid slashing attacks were effectively neutralized by the metal links. To survive on the battlefield, the blade mutated. The broad, flat cutting profile compressed into a hexagon, developing a thick diamond cross-section. It effectively became a solid steel spike mounted on a grip, engineered to punch straight through the tiny gaps in a chainmail shirt. The sword was so effective at this point in history that it actively dictated how human beings armored themselves for hundreds of years. The sword's primary purpose on the front lines eventually broke with a spark and a cloud of white smoke. As black powder ballistics became standard, the heavy armor that the sword had evolved to defeat was rendered obsolete. Without thick steel plates and chainmail to pierce, the highly specialized armor-punching swords had no specific tactical targets left to crack open. Retreating from the front lines between the 16th and 18th centuries, the weapon shrunk into civilian life, demoted to a gentleman's rapier or riding sword. Lethal efficiency gave way to status display. Smiths started wrapping hilts in intricate wire and piercing the shell guards with decorative patterns. These designs displayed the owner's wealth, but they were actually quite uncomfortable to hold in a real fight. The weapon of war managed to survive its technological defeat, but only by accepting a demotion to a piece of high society costume. By 1790, the collapse of martial utility was complete, captured by the English smallsword. Weighing a mere 14 ounces, the weapon traded lethal efficiency for intricate, floral-patterned silverwork. It is jewelry pretending to be a weapon. To make matters worse, 19th century antiquarians began tearing older, battle-worn weapons apart. They would disassemble centuries-old swords, scrubbing away the historical grit and worn leather just to make the steel shine on a mantelpiece. The master armorers are long dead. Their weapons are now bought and sold online as decorative commodities, often stripped of their original context. The physical sword has been retired from the battlefield, but it currently occupies a larger space in our visual culture than almost any other ancient tool. It dictates our modern visual vocabulary. Search any digital archive, and you will find thousands of stock images portraying generic, glowing, or ancient blades. It persists relentlessly in digital realms. In video games, ancient swords are the ultimate prizes, granting players magical energy shields or temporary health boosts that have no basis in physics. The historical irony is clear. Our modern digital myths, the hulking weights and magical abilities, completely contradict the hyper-efficient physical reality that actual smiths engineered for the battlefield. The sword fell on the battlefield, but the idea of the blade has outlived the civilizations that perfected it. It remains our most enduring visual shorthand for heroism, long after the last smith stopped quenching the steel.